Welcome to Legends of Grayskull, the podcast that dives deep into the mythology of Masters of the Universe, with your hosts Matthew Dooch and Shawn Scavana. News, reviews, remasterings and more are just ahead on Legends of Grayskull.
Hello everybody and welcome to Legends of Grayskull, the fan podcast where we discuss the history, the mystery, the magic, and mythology of He-Man, She-Ra, Eternia, Etheria, Nordor, Primus, New Adventures, Old Adventures, Ladybird, UK Annual, anything and everything you can think of with that He-Man, She-Ra, Masters of the Universe, that Revelation logo on the bottom. I'm Matthew Dooch, here again with Shawn Scavana, somewhere. How are we doing today, Shawn?
I'm doing. I have the power. I got the power sword. I took it from Skelegod. I didn't think he was worthy anymore.
He's not worthy. Oh, but he's jumping to the end, folks. But we're right at the beginning. So welcome. We are doing our first episode breakdown. So hopefully you guys checked out episode 70. That gave you our overall thoughts about Masters of the Universe Revelation, streaming now exclusively on Netflix. But today we're gonna dive a little deeper, and we're gonna break down. We're gonna talk episode by episode. So today is episode 1, The Power of Grayskull. All right. So
that hurt. I think I pulled something.
Pulled something or pooped something or something happened.
Apparently something happened. Yes, that's all I know.
So this is so I guess this is a little different. I mean, obviously we've done episode breakdowns before, episode reviews, but this time it's nice to do something that has just come out. You know what I mean? It's a great time because we started this show. There was nothing. So let's jump in. I guess we can skip the usual where did you see it? When did you see it? Because the answer for both of us is Netflix on July 23rd. So
yeah, pretty much.
I'm gonna throw it out there again right quick here, guys. If you enjoyed Revelation and you are hoping to see more, remember the best thing you can do is watch it. Watch it again. Watch it a third time. Watch it a fourth time. Just watch it. If you watched it at a buddy's house, watch it at your house. That the individual accounts mean a lot and the rewatch means a lot. And regardless of anything else that occurs, critics, audience, whatever, it all comes down to the views for Netflix. I mean, that's no secret. That's why they're here. So, episode 1, Power of Grayskull. Okay, right off the bat, let's talk about that intro a little bit, because that's the first thing you see when you hit episode 1. So you got that wonderful intro, that nice artwork that both shocked and amazed me. So it was just awesome seeing all that pop up, and it was so unexpected. I was expecting an intro, but I wasn't expecting all that vintage artwork.
Yeah, and I give credit to Powerhouse for the fact that I know in interviews leading up to the show, Kevin Smith said that Powerhouse wanted to bring the box art to life. I didn't realize that they meant literally by having that intro the way that they did. And it was actually pretty impressive too, because even their own animation for that, only 4 others share this secret with the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, Orko, and Cringer. That even fit in nicely with the overall motif of what they were doing with that. Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to talk about coming home again, that intro is like, man, that hit me in the feels just going, my God, all this stuff I loved as a kid. There it is right in front of my eyes again.
And it was a nice kind of, because the Castle Grayskull box art was from Classics. You had some of the Earl Norm stuff. You had, one of the 4, I think it was one of the South American posters on there with Skeletor and Evelyn. I think that's from Brazil or a country in South America. I could be wrong on the exact source, but I like that they kind of pulled from some different stuff. It would have been so easy, even going the packaging stuff, to just go, all right, here's vintage Castle Grayskull, vintage Snake Mountain. Snake Mountain, they used their animation for that too, which was interesting. So I like that it was kind of like, to me, like I've stressed on the show before, I know Filmation's thrown out there and everything else in as far as the precursor to this series, but to me this intro was kind of a last reminder, like, look, we are doing vintage era. Like, here's kind of a progression amongst the different stuff, and here we are now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really like that. I like the narration, the nods to the '87 movie, of course, that we used as inspiration for our original first Legends of Grayskull intro before we got James to do his, and it was wonderfully done.
Yeah, Liam Cunningham of Game of Thrones fame, and obviously Duncan on the new series. If that guy says anything without gravatas, I'd love to hear him, because everything he says just feels epic with that intro, especially. And I love that they riffed on the '87 movie, because the '87 movie, for love it, hate it, mediocre, whatever you feel about it, there is something to be said about how that intro starts out and that opening narration, and you have at the corner of the center of the universe, at the border between the light and the dark. It's like it's almost like you're around a campfire listening to this story, but the way he does it, it's like this royal decree of what you're about to watch. And I was really, really enjoying that.
Yeah. And so from the intro, then we get right to the opening scene with He-Man on Stridor traveling towards Castle Grayskull. An image that we are so used to seeing because it was in both of I want to say it was in both of the trailers, but it was very prominent in the first trailer for sure.
Definitely.
But I love how they cut it for the trailer, where it's like, and I kept doing that throughout the series, or at least the first few episodes, where most of the trailer stuff was taken from. It's like, oh, that's that, but they cut it so masterfully. Like all the things they showed He-Man on Stridor leading up to Castle Grayskull, a few different shots in the trailer, but not once did we catch a glimpse of Spike or Clawful, which are indeed trailing behind him. Which would have, it's I like that. I like that. It's like, oh, I thought I knew what this scene was, and I kind of did, but you know me, I hate my spoilers. So for me to get this scene where I'm like, because that's what I'm thinking as I'm watching it. Like that Strider foot comes down, I'm like, okay, it's obvious spoilers here, guys. Do I need to say that? Do I need to say that in a breakdown video? I shouldn't have to.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Obviously spoilers, guys, but we'd already figured out from the trailer that it's Faker on Stridor, not He-Man, right? I mean, we pretty much put all that together with the other shots of Faker holding Sorceress in the chamber and everything. You can go back and watch our teaser reveal for that as we put the pieces together in front of your eyes. But so right off the bat, my mind, like, oh, I know this is going to be we got, okay, there's He-Man riding Stridor. He's going to go up to the drawbridge. He's going to muscle his way into Grayskull. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, Spiker and Clawful are here. And it's like, whoa, wait. Like, for me, somebody who hates spoilers, it's like, okay, this scene still got stuff that I didn't see coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it was really cool also, other than, because I did see in one of the groups before the release of the show that somebody showed the shaping staff transformation, and they could see that Spikor was turning into Skeletor or vice versa. So there was that element of, well, what's that all about? So but there was that question, how do they get there? And then the fact that he's leading them in, and they're prisoners,
right?
And he's going to bring them to Grayskull and all that stuff. I thought it worked really well. And on top of that, for me, I enjoyed seeing their takes on those two
Yeah.
characters, because we didn't see anything leading up to the show to let us see here's Clawful, here's Spike, or so now we got a glimpse of those on top of that, which I thought was great.
Yeah. Well, there was a shot of Clawful leaping out of the land shark. But other than that,
But it was small. It wasn't
was
like
small.
a, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it wasn't like
you saw him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I love the way they designed his face. I think out of all the iterations, animated wise, this is my absolute favorite because he does have a very like creature look to him versus I always thought he looked a little more like a Muppet with claws.
He was
as
a
kid.
nice amalgamation of in my opinion, the vintage toy and the 2000X series, where he was a bit more animalistic, but he still retained kind of the size. They bulked him up a little bit, but not to Mike Young Productions levels, you know?
Yeah.
But even then, it's like, okay, so like you said, we saw that shot of Spikor, you know, the Spikor chest changed into a Skeletor chest, you know? So right then and there, it's like, yeah, obviously, I'm like, okay, this is Skeletor. But at the same time, the image we saw in Grayskull when they're holding the sorceress, it's got Clawful, Stridor, and Faker. So I'm thinking like, okay, that's Spikor is Skeletor, but I'm still convinced that Clawful is Clawful. You know what I mean? Because we saw him. We saw him leap out of the land shark. We saw him in the background by Stridor. I'm like, all right, so Skeletor and Clawful, cool. And they get, but yeah, they get up to the gates of Grayskull. And the sorceress lowers the drawbridge and comes out to greet He-Man. And I mean, I know we brought this up a little bit, but whatever. We're going through the whole thing. We're going to repeat ourselves sometimes. I think that was probably, like you said, it was probably that moment where you've got to suspend disbelief enough for the story. That, you know, sorceress knowing, I guess the biggest part is the secret identity, right? That leads to trouble here. Because Skeletor is sending Faker as He-Man to Grayskull, just thinking like he's Grayskull's champion. This is what he would do, I think. But with us knowing Sorceress and knowing that this is the day that Teela gets promoted, you know, I mean, I guess you could say that the Sorceress, you know, that she really does think Adam, regardless of whatever's going on, would go out and stop Spikor and Clawful, right? I mean, he breaks up the ceremony in a little bit just to go to Grayskull when the sorceress is in trouble. So, but I mean, it's especially with with us knowing the secret identity. This is the hardest part to suspend disbelief. You know what I mean? Or that needs a suspension to make it work.
For me, you know, like, and this is me going to Filmation in my head and just thinking, you know, she never really got out of the castle. So anytime that he would go to He-Man would come to Grayskull, there was always by the power of Grayskull, I command the drawbridge open, you know, and or something along those lines where Grayskull was shut until He-Man let himself be known. I'm here. And they even did that with the episode on Filmation where, you know, the Faker robot was outside saying, "Sorceress, I'm hurt. I need your help." And that's how they got the drawbridge open. Whereas this time it just opens and she's opened it up already. And there she is. Like, hi, everybody. You know, and that moment, it was like, because it's the first few minutes of the show, it really did make me go, why did that happen so easily? But again, like you said, there is a suspension of disbelief to be had.
Nope.
Hold on.
Someone's got a call coming in.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. Anyway,
how about
this? Suspension of disbelief.
This just occurred to me though, because one of the big things about the Faker He-Man is we can tell easily it's him because he doesn't have the Sword of Power. He-Man always calls down the drawbridge by using the sword. So maybe it's actually the opposite. She's flying around. She notices that He-Man doesn't have his sword, figures something happened, and that's why she opens the drawbridge for him.
Go through that one more time really quick.
Okay, so He-Man needs if we're going by the Filmation, I command the drawbridge open. He always uses his power sword for that.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's actually not the. It's not that the sorceress doesn't notice that it's. Well, I mean, either way, she doesn't notice it's Faker. But when she's flying around, she notices that He-Man does not have his power sword. So she knows he can't open the drawbridge on his own.
Mm-hmm.
So she opens it for him. She's probably figuring like, okay, he's got, and that's why he came to Grayskull. Because he lost his power sword in the battle. He managed to capture Spikor and Clawful, but she's figuring that he lost his power sword in the battle. And so now she's like, oh my God, what's going on, He-Man? We gotta, she's probably already figuring like, hey, we gotta figure this out. We gotta get the power sword back,
All right.
Boom!
It works. It works for me. It works.
Oh. No, that just came to me as we were talking. It's like, okay, like that actually works. It's actually flipping. I guess because right off the bat we want to, but like the sorceress is one of the wisest characters on Eternia, so right away we want to kind of believe that there's no way she would be tricked.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, everybody can be fooled. No one's omnipotent. So,
well, the other thing too that I got to give props to is the fact that a lot of people, I know there's fans out there of the character, but a lot of people always made that, Faker's a blue He-Man. How could you really be, how could you be fooled by this? And this scene definitely proves, well, written a certain way and letting him look a certain way. Yeah, he can fool people, and that's the whole point. And it works nicely in just making that character a lot more dangerous because it's like the anti-Eternia thing. When you look at Faker, there is that feeling now, especially in Revelation. It's like, I get uneasy looking at He-Man being like, are you right now? Or is that not you? It seems with the anti-Eternia, it's like, he obviously looks different, but it's that whole thing of he's not He-Man. That's just wrong, and so I like that a lot the more I think about it. But yeah, it was more the questioning of sorceress. But yeah, I'm going with it. Let's go into the rest of it.
I think we solved that completely. So, and then one of my favorite parts of the entire series, Skeletor just comes right out like he's still Spikor. He drops the ropes that were, they looked like they were holding him, but they weren't really. He comes up and he's like, he's just like, no, sorceress, it is me. I tricked you with my shaping staff, and it is Skeletor, Lord of... And Sorcerer's just blasts him. Like, he reveals himself, and Sorcerer's just, boom, right off the drawbridge,
Mm-hmm. It is hard not to laugh at that part. And honestly, I'm still not the biggest fan of comedic Skeletor, but that moment actually worked nicely for me because he really was. He's announcing himself, and then bam, it's like she's having none of it, and it worked.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved they went, But then, of course, that's the beauty of Skeletor's plan is then Faker is close to her and he's able to grab her and get her into Grayskull.
Into Grayskull, yeah. Actually, that whole sequence to me, as weird as this is going to sound, it's a home invasion.
Oh, it is.
And it's like I was actually a little creeped out by that in like a subliminal way, I think, because there is that feeling. For me, it's like horror movies aren't scary unless they start involving stuff like that. Like any movie where all of a sudden there's these strangers in your house, it's like, holy crap, this is wrong, And so like there is this uneasiness to all of that, even though yes, she's fighting back against them. But I absolutely love the minute she puts up that force field to she's encased, but then it's the whole you're safe, the castle isn't.
Right.
And I love that you can see the sweat and him do it. That's the call your champion moment. And I'm like, oh, this is getting good.
Right. And the fact, she blasts the arms off Faker and he just reattaches himself. It's like, oh, okay, like this is. This is
I
nice.
was I was actually, because we saw that in the trailer, and I kept
Yep.
going, are they going to have it where then he's just stumbling around with no arms? No, I love that he reattaches them, and it's like, oh, right. we're going like T1000, not T800 on this thing. This is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And then and then in there, Evil Lynn reveals that she's shaped as Clawful. So that was a nice surprise. It's like, okay, now and Stridor actually changes back into Night Stalker. So that was a nice little drop there.
Yeah.
And then Sorceress, of course, is up against the wall. Cut into the Royal Palace. It's a big day. Teela's getting promoted to the rank of Man at Arms, and we just get a nice scene, and it's very reminiscent of Filmation, and the minicom, and just like it just felt like home. Going into the palace, the king and queen, Orko, accidentally putting Cringer into a bubble and almost suffocating him. I mean, it could have been the start of any episode. It was just nice. It was nice being home again,
Yeah, it really had that 2000X flavor too, because I liked on the beginning episode, it's Adam's birthday, and it's like this is a different. It's like they're celebrating, Teela becoming Man at Arms, but there is that feeling of like, I remember this from 20 years ago. We start off with a little, like a little celebration. Right. That's pretty cool, like you said, it dropped me right into home again.
Yeah,
and I did like when Adam saves Cringer from the bubble, and I like the Orko. Does anybody have the power to help me save Cringer? And then pop. Yeah. I have the power. I just thought that was fun. Like Kevin Smith, for all anybody who loves or hates the guy, I actually enjoyed those little moments because. Yeah. For anybody that might not know it, it's kind of fun for them to hear these things and go, "Oh, there he is. There's Adam," and him saying that. It's like, all right, it's a nod, Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
There was lots of those, especially in this first episode. It was very quippy, and that's a positive to me. Like the little quips. I was digging it throughout. It's like, okay, all right, and we get a nice scene between Man at Arms and Teela, and about how proud he is of her and everything else, and we get a nice Adam Teela scene where they're messing around with each other, flirting and everything, and it was just like, all right, like we're gonna push this relationship, which is great. I mean, to me, I know other people disagree, but I've always been an Adam and Teela wind up together fan. So it was nice to see their banter. It was nice to see their back and forth, and that bit of playfulness, that's like, okay, there is some chemistry here.
Yeah, and something that kind of threw me a little bit in those moments with the dialogue was Teela talking about herself being an orphan, because that doesn't really come up a lot. Usually it's Man at Arms is her father, Duncan's father, and I think they did that to step themselves back from the idea that even Man at Arms isn't her biological dad. He's her father, and he takes care of her. But it's the whole idea she's insular within a family unit, which I know for a lot of fans out there, the family dynamic was a big thing of what made Filmation great for them. And that's the heart of that show for a lot of people. And like I said, it was a little startling to hear that out of her, because she didn't really wear that on her sleeve too often. In the originals, at least.
It was the way it was the way they said it. Like, they never would have used the word orphan back then. They would always be like, "Oh, Man Arms found you," or "Your adoptive father." They wouldn't actually. But yeah, really, she's an orphan. Man at Arms is not her biological dad. She doesn't know her parents. As far as she knows, she was left on a doorstep somewhere, because even how Man Arms found her, he's never really been able to go into, because it provides too many clues to her past.
Plus, I think it was dropped in for the foreshadowing aspect of what the overarching story is going to become by episode 10. But like I said, it was a little like they wouldn't say orphan, and she didn't really go there too often, but whatever. It worked. And the Adam and her moments, I actually thought that was fun. And the whole, well, you don't know who he is and all that stuff, and there's these little moments. Like I said, they sprinkle in these little things, and I actually thought that was fun.
And
The callbacks.
at the same time, they're also catching up the people who haven't watched He-Man in 30 years.
Exactly.
You got to remember that too, because I know us in the community, we get so used to we debate this stuff day in, day out. We're posting, we're finding, we're discussing, we're reading, we're whatever. But I tell you what, I've talked to people who literally have not seen anything since about 87 or so, or whenever they stopped watching the tunes, stopped collecting the toys. This revelation has grown so much bigger than just the hardcore fans. It's bringing a lot of people back to the brand.
Yep.
Even people that missed 2000X or missed New Adventures or the DC Comics or Classic. There are people coming in the community right now that are from 90 on, they have never had anything to do with He-Man. But they see it and they're like, okay, I remember that. That looks cool. Same thing Transformers, the movie did, the Michael Bay one. No matter what you feel about it, it really thrust Transformers back into the spotlight. So, that's what we got to remember. This first episode, not only is it trying to entertain us who know the insides and out, it's also trying to be like, hey, in case you haven't watched in a while, Adam's got the power, he changes into He-Man. Man-Arms is her adopted father. They even drop a line coming up shortly here where they're like, hey, just so you know, in case you missed the Rainbow Warrior, Marlena has figured out Adam's secret. Because that's all the stuff they have to get. They have to get all these building blocks into place, and this story moves so fast that they don't have time to take a whole episode to go over the basics. So they've got to just, boom, boom, boom. Skeletor is evil, Lord of Destruction, Sorceress and Grayskull, but check, 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 check. And that's where we're at the end of this Royal Palace scene as Teela's being knighted and Adam gets the call that the Sorceress is in trouble. And what I love is Teela reacts to that. I don't think she picked up on the message, but when the Sorceress starts talking to Adam, Teela does this little like sideways look, kind of like, when you can almost hear something. Like, you guys hear that? Like, is something going on? Did you catch that?
I didn't catch that. No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, watch it again. Teela's down, and you hear the Sorceress like, Adam! Or He-Man, as you might call him He-Man. And yeah, Teela, it's quick, but Teela just does this like, and then we cut to Adam, who's doing the focus thing,
Okay. So, yeah, I missed that.
So a little foreshadowing later here as to, I think Teela's coming of a certain age here, it seems like.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I actually enjoyed this a lot, and the way they dropped in the characters to give you that, oh, here's this, here's that, and all that stuff. I thought that worked really nicely. And I felt like everything that we reviewed leading up to this series led me to go, hey, I remember this. And it's because we talked about it on the show, because Rainbow Warrior was not really on my radar. And then we do the review. And then we see the whole, a mother is proud of her son and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then
always knows her son and what he is capable of.
See, this is why you're on the show and why you should fire me. See, there you go. But the whole thing is, that little moment I liked a lot, because it didn't need, it was her saying it, but him not even hearing it. So there is that, and the way that they did that, I thought was really, really well done. And then right after that, we have our our first transformation sequence, which is pretty sweet too.
Real quick here, I did like how Adam went to Man-at-Arms to kind of be like the guy that like it wasn't just Adam running off or anything. He's like, no, I can't just take off of here. So he's got to subtly tell Man-at-Arms hey, Sorcerer's in trouble. So then Man-at-Arms can just to kind of take the heat off him. That was a smart excuse. Okay, that way I'm not a factor in this. no one's gonna notice me, and then Man at Arms is gonna be the one like, hey, we need to get the Grayskull, and no one, everyone's gonna be like, oh, Man at Arms, he knew he got to call something,
Yeah.
and not get Adam into the equation. I really like that because it would have been easy just to do the, oh, I remembered something I gotta do and take off,
Yeah. And the other thing, I was thinking at first, my first viewing, I was like, is this gonna be like Thor? They're in the middle of coronating Thor, and then the frost giants show up, and then he's not king, and then it's the whole I should be king kind of thing. And it's like, no, I like that this happens right in the middle of all this going down. And then they just look to Teal and they're like, Man at Arms, lead the way, for attorney. I'm like, sweet. That's cool. It's legit. She is Man at Arms at this point.
She got her promotion. Man at Arms is a rank. Duncan's real name is Duncan. Just throwing it out there. Man at Arms has always been his rank and his title. Granted, it's the first time we've ever seen that there's two Man at Arms at the same time, but it's not saying that. I mean, if it's a rank, it's a title. There can be many lords, many ladies.
Well,
there can be, the
many
captains
majors,
and
many
lieutenants,
sergeants.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So
I'm good with that. I thought it was a real nice little tweak on the mythos there, and to have her rise up without actually replacing anybody was nice too, because that's a problem you get a lot of times. It's like, okay, well, now if we want a character to come up, we have to get rid of another character, and they did it without that. They're like, oh, they can be equals. And Man Arms or Duncan was ecstatic that his daughter achieved the same rank as him. Like he was so proud. Oh, the family chemistry is written so nicely.
Yeah, agreed. It's like, I not to get into the negativity and all that stuff, but I'm thinking about it right now. I'm like, she excelled well enough to become the new Man at Arms.
Yep.
And then her destiny is to be the sorceress. I mean, she's all over the place. She's just taking roles left and right now because she's that good. But I believe her in either role, though. That's the thing that I think is interesting. They never wrote her in anything previously to make you believe she couldn't handle either. And I like that.
And I've always been interested. Something I speculated a lot on over the years. It's like, okay, so at some point, like you said, these two lives are going to come to a head, and what happens then? Like that's been one of my biggest what ifs. All my time as a He-Man fan. It's like, well, what is going to happen here? Because she's heading. Those are two very different paths as it stands right now. But
yes,
we'll get into that more down the road, I'm sure. So now we get our big battle scene. It's everybody. It's Skelcons. It's hover robots. It's land sharks. It's Bashosauruses, Beastman, Clawful, Trapjaw, Triclops, War Sleds. And they're all just... And Sorceress is holding them all off. She is ridden at her level of power here that she should always be at. Where as long as it's at the castle... She's got some power. She's got these crystals on top of the parapets that are shooting out lasers. She's the one that's slicing up the land shark. And but she's getting overwhelmed, like you said. She is trying to keep her force field up. She's trying to attack this army advancing, and she's getting weak.
Yeah, I saw some people that had some issues about the crystals being there. And I was like, I had no problem with that for the simple fact that in Filmation and 2000X, they never ever referenced having like the gun on the parapet and all that. It's like, well, what else would you do? You'd have to create a magical construct in order to do that. I'm like, big giant crystals that are shooting lasers, that's pretty freaking cool. I didn't mind that. I actually was like, so that's the defenses, cool.
And I thought it was good foreshadowing there too as to what's going to come, because those crystals, I love them too. They definitely look out of place on Grayskull, but they might not look out of place on something else.
Exactly.
So
yes.
Transformation sequence. We skipped over.
Well, no, we don't have to, because I was actually going to bridge it. I was going to say that we see that happening before he's able to turn, and everybody's leaving the throne room and everything.
Right.
And I really liked that in his vision from the sorceress and in the communication, he sees the amount of stuff happening in front of there, and it's like oh crap. It really does feel like it's this push that's going to finally take it. And that it's like, if there's not enough urgency in making somebody turn into He-Man at that point, I don't know what is. Like, that was a great way to illustrate time is of the essence. We got to get this done, you know?
And kind of the theme that ties us through. So when the sorceress puts up her force field, it is, I mean, it is a prism. It is a rainbow prism. Then you got the crystals defending Grayskull. And then, of course, we've got the new transformation sequence where, as Adam says the words, his body is transformed by this prismatic rainbow energy, and it's just so elemental to me. Like, we're saying, like, the sorceress draws on this raw power. He-Man transforms with this raw power. We're using these crystals to defend Grayskull. Like, the themes are very, very well done here, where it's like, yeah, this is, as a prism breaks down all light into its separate colors, those elements, like, we are drawing on this elemental power. And, and as we'll find out, it's like, it's the magic. It's the magic that created the universe. It's the magic that keeps us all together. And I just like that kind of theme of same way a rainbow's broken down by a prism, that's kind of what they're dealing with here.
And on top of that, I know for a lot of people as well that the colorfulness of Filmation is something that is really important. And obviously 2000X had more muted tones, and it was more browns and stuff like that. So that, like, when I see something like this, in no way, shape, or form disappointed, because it brought all that vivid color back into the palette. And it's like, you didn't really see those colors in the color scheme of a lot of this until that moment. And that's like, those are He-Man's transformation colors in that way. At least for me, that's how I looked at it. And a lot of people, like, I know when we heard the transformation originally, there was, you and I even debated it. Yeah, you were doing the whole,
I wasn't sold.
When does he become He-Man? Because it sounds like he's still Adam when he says, I have the power, but he should be He-Man when he said, and the way they did it, I actually thought was cool, because that's the moment the power's taking him over completely, is when he yells it. And I'm like,
nicely.
I actually really was impressed by that. And I still like Filmation the best. That's where it still edges it out for me. That and the theme music is still DNA essential.
You can't beat it. It's baked into us. Like, Filmation is just where you go when you think transformation.
It's primal. Just like for me, the mini comic, seeing the Alcoa work is primal. The same thing with Filmation, but this one is like, wow, it like amps up everything that I hated about 2000X. It goes, no, we're going to do it in a way where it's going to feel right. And it felt right by the time that it finished.
100%.
So it's like,
I loved it. The glowing up Battle Cat, like, through the helmet and everything. And the armor just like goes down his back. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. It's wonderful. I like the way he holds his sword. I like the way he, like you said, he's still Adam when he does the I have the power, and that's like the sealing the deal. No, it's very well done. I was pumped. And then we get to the battle, which fighty,
One more thing real quick. How cool is it that after he does the transformation, he gets on top of Battle Cat? They have that rearing up like, hero moment. And then the next shot you see is the rooftops of the freaking palace. And they're jumping across the rooftops because they need to get there as fast as possible. The minute they did that, I was just sitting there with my daughter going, like, he's riding on the rooftops. He needs to get there that fast. How cool is that? That's
right. Battle Cat just jumped out the window and was just jumping off of everything until he landed on the ground. And they took off to Grayskull. It's like, oh, right.
This is how when the bat signal's raised, this is how it's done. That moment is just wow. Every time I see him on top of the roofs jumping, to this day I've seen it 3 times, and I'm like, dang, that's great.
Oh yeah, love it. Absolutely. And so I mean, highlights of the battle, obviously, Man-at-Arms and Trapjaw have a night. It's hard to break it all down, because it just, it happened so fast, but like we said in the trailer, the He-Man catching the Bashosaurus ball and saving Boulder and saving Man-at-Arms, that was great. I love He-Man doing the punch the ground to push back a bunch of Skeletons and hover robots.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and I like that the battle gets to play out. You know, even more so, I think, than Mike Young Productions. Like this one really, you know, we got the outside, we got Clamp Champ and Fisto, and we got all that, but then we progress with the battle. We head inside with He-Man and Tila, and you know, going up against Night Stalker and Evil Lyn. I think Skeletor's already down in the chamber, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just cool just seeing like that's what we didn't get as kids. Like they didn't get to use their weapons. Not that they wouldn't have, just because of the restrictions of the time, they didn't get to use them properly. And you know, the violence had to be way toned down. So, you know, and even Mike Young, like they only had you know, they were episodic.
Mm-hmm.
They had a few multi-part episodes, but basically they needed to tell their story in 20 minutes, you know, in
Mm-hmm.
2x. So there's just not a lot of time for this. Whereas here, it's comic books. It's deconstructed storytelling. Our story actually plays out over 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think you can like this is probably the closest one to kind of just its own episode. The other ones I feel like they just roll right into each other. Like once you start, you can't stop unless you have
Yep.
to or unless you finish the series. So it was
Mm-hmm.
nice seeing the progression of the battle. We got to take the time for them to battle outside, come inside, you know, and eventually head down to the orb chamber where Skeletor already is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but the orb chamber moment actually had me going like, I kind of dig that, like the way that they built Grayskull in 2000X, where it was like this, it just kept going.
Right.
Like when you see Adam following the sorceress to get the power sword on the beginning, it just felt like this thing is endless, the amount of room. And in this one, it's like, this is that to me, where it's like, here's this new area that we've never actually seen
Yep.
in any of the cartoons. They made this their own. And I really liked it. Because I remember when we saw the initial trailer, I was like, they got to be like outside in the woods near Grayskull fighting it out
Yeah.
at this point. Like they drew them into the woods to get them away, and they're doing this whole fight. And then, you know, it's like the very, very basics of what you could make out in that one. And
Right.
it's like, oh, this is in Grayskull. That's freaking cool, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. When I saw that, it was like I thought the same thing. They're out in a forest somewhere, or something. Maybe this is even before he gets into Grayskull, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, Skeletor opens a chamber, leading down below the room that they're in, and it leads down. It spirals way down, like to this, like to you know, down into what would be the abyss. I don't know if we really saw an abyss in this show, did we?
I don't think there was an abyss. I don't remember there being an abyss around Grayskull this time around. So I guess they're going with the castle just keeps going down until you reach the core of the planet or something.
But yeah, it's way down the heart of Grayskull, and it spirals down. And the further you go down, it changes from, you know, the stone and everything of Grayskull. It changes into a very you know, the walls are tree limbs and there's grass growing everywhere. It's very magical and sparkly. And again, kind of getting into the elements. Like if you could picture an Eden in your head. You know, I'm hoping everybody who is listening to this has watched the show, but in case you haven't, yeah, it's very Dawn of Time for Eden-esque, you know. And
botanical.
Huh?
It's very botanical.
It is. It's very botanical.
That's my contribution.
And yeah, it's and down at the center of it is this pyramid with He-Man's H symbol on it. And basically they confront Skeletor down there, and he reveals he's got a lot of information all of a sudden. which I'm hoping that I'm thinking the prequel comic, we might need to keep an eye on that because he got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of information all of a sudden. And basically, what they did is they jumped back to the old Michael Halperin Bible, written back in like '81, where used as the basis for the Filmation series Bible and everything. And they said they went back to that the Castle Grayskull was originally the Hall of Wisdom. The elders put their power into an orb and changed the hall to look like Grayskull, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's and I didn't see that coming. They completely blew me away that they went with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, me too. Because, like I said, I guessed completely wrong there, but I actually really like that. There's this whole other level, and that level it looks beautiful versus everything above it looking creepy and
Right.
hard and stone like and everything. I enjoyed that, and it gave a lot of character to this, especially this sequence too.
Right. Now, when you saw that little pyramid in the center there, what's the first thing you noticed about it?
Honestly, I noticed the H on it, the He-Man symbol.
Yeah.
But other than that, what else was I supposed to notice
Well,
about
no,
it?
I just the second I saw it, I saw the H symbol and it had that
Mm-hmm.
little slot in it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm immediately like the sword goes there. Like I'm like
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
like they not only did they jump back to the Hall of Wisdom origin, but
Mm-hmm.
but they uh but they also were able to do the slot in to honor the old key to Castle Grayskull thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right when I saw that slot, I'm like, that's his plan. Like and that's why he was all goading the sorceress, call your champion, all that. He's like, he knows he needs a sword. He knows he
Mm-hmm.
needs a sword for this protection here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the first time around, I just noticed the H symbol. And I was like, oh, look at that. The H is on there, and all that. But I didn't catch I don't think I caught the key on it until the second or third viewing. But because it makes it obviously it's there.
Right.
This sequence, it's like, if you didn't notice there's a keyhole in it, like me, then you're going to notice it because Skeletor's going to let you know it's there in a couple, like 30 seconds or so.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's and so we get a nice battle here, and Skeletor's just out for blood. I like he's got the Havoc staff. He's really using that, able changing the end into like that spear and everything. I'm like, oh,
I
that's a cool trick.
I really like that. And the one thing though I couldn't figure out, and maybe you have an answer to this, was did he turn the shaping staff into the Havoc staff, and it's the shaping staff, but he's using it as the Havoc staff then, or is it the Havoc staff can just do that because it's magical?
No, I think that's just the. Oh, you're popular today.
I don't like being popular. I hate being popular.
See, if you had
Thankfully, the same problem didn't happen.
If you had an Android, there's a nice "Do Not Disturb" button on there.
There is a do not disturb button, but I didn't think I'd be disturbed so much right now.
No, I figured it was just one of the properties of the Havoc staff. I think he lost. I want to say he lost the shaping staff earlier, like it got maybe when the sorceress first blasted him. I don't think he's had a reason to mess with it once he got inside Grayskull.
I don't remember, but I want to say like he did conjure the Havoc staff kind of out of the air. So
right, that's what I mean. He conjured the Havoc staff out of thin air.
Yeah.
He didn't change the shaping staff into it. So I think it's just Havoc staff because, as we find out in a moment here, it's got a couple other tricks that it never had before. So they're battling. Skeletor's actually kind of got the upper hand here. He's really going gung ho, and luckily Mossman shows up, and oh man, he looked awesome. He's all big, and it made sense. You get the feeling that like Mossman knew about this place. Like he just pops up out of the walls. Like he's just like, I'm here. And he grabs Skeletor, and slams him to the ground and everything, and that wonderful Alan Oppenheimer voice sounds like an old battle cat. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then
go ahead.
Skeletor. I actually thought it was kind of cool for the fact that Skeletor actually opens the mouth of the Havoc staff to have it turn into the flamethrower. And I'm not a fan of like, we're witnessing Moss Man die. That actually, it was like, whoa, like he actually killed Moss Man.
Yeah, and that's the moment after everything else. It's like, the Skeletor scheme felt like home. The Royal Palace felt like home. And then once he just incinerates Moss Man, it's like, okay, I don't feel safe anymore. Like no one's safe. You know what I mean? Like the threat's there. It's what you felt as a kid watching Filmation. Like, oh, He-Man's entombed on Phantos. Like, what are we gonna do? They could win. Like that's where it put me. I'm like, okay, so we're doing this. Did I want to see Moss Man die? Absolutely not. But it is just driving home the point, like, hey, you don't know what's coming.
Exactly.
Nobody's safe.
And
I like that feeling in my tummy.
Same here. And I'd say it for me, it didn't bring back any Filmation memories. What it did was it reminded me of how I felt watching the 87 movie, because the way Langella portrayed him, there was a sense of, you don't know what he's about to do next. Sometimes he was pulling some stuff where you're like, oh, This isn't Filmation anymore. And that's basically how it felt to watch this one. And it's not easy to watch that scene.
No.
And it's like, it is that Filmation. Everybody goes home at the end of the day and they're fine, and
but I like the stakes. I like having stakes. Like I said, as a kid, I felt there were stakes in Filmation. You know what I mean? But obviously, as you grow up, you can tell. No, everyone's going to make it home safe. Everything's going to reset. We're going to fix everything. And that's a hard part of looking back. I mean, we've covered some great episodes where we really felt like, they nailed it. But at the end of the day, making adult me feel like there's stakes in something, like there's an actual threat, that does it for me. So, and then He-Man just loses it. He's like, I have to end this, and he just charges at Skeletor and stabs him right in the gut with the power sword. And and to me, that is no different than in the Problem with Power, when Skeletor goaded He-Man into breaking down the portal and, thinking he killed somebody. Like, he just killed Mossman. He-Man's, he's already in the orb chamber, the heart of Grayskull. He-Man's going, I gotta end this. Unfortunately, that's exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that scene is one of the best scenes in this show, where He-Man's got Skeletor impaled, and Skeletor just grabs a sword and pushes it in farther, so that it enters the lock, because his back's right up against the pyramid. And it's just like, he wanted it. He got it. This is exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. And I honestly, I know that's another one of those controversial points, but the one thing about that sequence that every time I've seen it, I look and it's like, right after that happens, He-Man's looking and you can tell he didn't want to do it.
Right.
And, it's just, yes, is it something that's foreign to him because we're used to seeing him one way? Yeah, I get it. But at the same time, there is a certain amount, like Superman, for the life of me, Man of Steel, no, I don't believe how that worked out at all. This, to me, did not feel unnatural compared to something like Superman or Man of Steel. And I don't know, it took it to a place where when I was a kid, I played where there were more stakes than just, whatever it was, the MacGuffin of the week sort of stuff.
Yep.
And there were characters that I said, okay, and they died. And, I just, it doesn't, if everybody gets to go home at the end of the day, unfortunately, that doesn't help anything in the story, because it just makes you go, well, nothing matters. Everybody's safe constantly.
And the thing is, he still pulled that punch. Like, he could have stabbed him in the heart. He could have stabbed him square, in the stomach. There were a lot of vital organs he could have gone for, and he still pulled his stab to where it's like the lower gut. Like, I mean, even, once Skeletor pulls himself off the sword after the orb chamber opens up, after the sword's in the keel, like, Evelyn immediately starts going to work on Skeletor, with her magic to heal. Like, it's, I mean, he could, like I said, if He-Man starts chopping the heads off enemies, we gotta talk. But him stabbing him through like that, sure, he's trying to incapacitate him. But unfortunately, then the orbs exposed all the power of the elders, and Skeletor actually pushes Evelyn away. It's like, oh, he's not done yet. He knew exactly what this was going to do. He knew it was in there. He's, like I said, he's got a lot of information. I'm really excited for that prequel comic to finish up.
Yeah. Agreed.
And he wants the power, and he thinks the only way to get it is to break open the orb that's containing it. And he just smacks the orb with his Havoc staff, and power explodes everywhere. And the sorceress is able to hold back time for just a few seconds to try and figure out what to do.
Yeah, I listening to Kevin Smith the other night, I actually love the part. He's like, yeah, I wrote that about, magic is strong, but not as strong as time. He's like, I don't know where I got that from, but man, I can't believe I wrote that. It's like, I when she said that, I really thought that was a great line, because it is like, I was one of those people up until a certain point in my life where I'm like, magic is like cheat codes, and it was driving me crazy because the rules never were put into place. But I love that even here, it's like, even with the power of Grayskull, even with the power of the universe, nothing is going to stop this. It's just holding it back just a little longer to come up with a quick plan, and hopefully that's enough. You know?
And basically, if that energy all gets released uncontrolled, it's going to incinerate everything, the universe, and Adam, or He-Man, devises a plan to, he's going to call upon the power, since he's calling from the orb, he's going to call upon the power while it's exploding and channel it all into him. As the sorceress warns him, it will destroy you. You cannot handle this much power. It will kill you. And he does it without hesitation. And that
because that's what heroes do.
That's right.
As Thor would say, that's what heroes do.
And and even that line, he's talking to his sorcerers. He goes, well, what if I call upon the power when I'm already in this form? And Teela's there. This form, like, she had just completely lost, because all pretense is dropped at this point. It's end of the universe level here. And I've always said the secret's going to either come out in the heat of the moment where there's no other option, or in death, and that's, and that's exactly what happens. He-Man calls upon the power, sorceress loses her control, and he channels all of that power into the sword, splitting it into the two halves and revealing his secret.
Which I think for me is one of the most iconic moments of this entire episode, because I mean, we've seen, very rarely we've seen them let the power return and then he's He-Man into Adam again. And to see it done in this way, where it's also like the entire universe is on the line and he's pulling this off, and you just see the sword break in two. He-Man's holding two different halves for the first time. And I love, like you said, that moment with Skeletor where he looks and he's like, he's just a boy, And, I love that whole sequence, and I love the way they built towards that, with Teela being blinded, and then she looks and Battle Cat's disappearing and becoming Cringer. And then she's like, what? And she looks over and there's Adam standing there with the swords. And he does that, like he turns and looks at her for that 1 second before the explosion. And it's, I don't care what anybody says about this show. That moment is amazing.
Yes.
The whole way, everything, because you're talking about, like going on 40 years worth of story of us wondering what would happen if, and here it is. We get to see it, and it's done in the biggest epic way that I can imagine it in animated form at this point.
Well, and that's it. I couldn't have imagined it any better, honestly. The way it was done, the energy swirling around, like just the whole pacing, the music, the whole direction of the scene was just like beautifully done. Like you said, Tila looking and seeing, and Skeletor, his indignation that's what's been standing in between him this whole time. And
I
then
absolutely
just
love that so much.
Flash of light, and Adam and Skeletor and the swords are just gone. Just nothing. Not a trace. Just a scorch mark on the floor.
And that's one of the things I absolutely love about this is for anybody that wants to, he killed off He-Man. He didn't kill him off in a way that wasn't, it mattered.
Right.
Because when you look at what he's like, literally, they're seconds away from the universe just going by. That's it. And everything anyone cared about. Now, yes, it's animated and all that stuff, but if you put your mind into it and go, it's that whole, Infinity War, everybody's back again, everybody's safe, but this one person had to do something to make sure all that was accomplished. And, for me, it's like the big guys, like, Superman, He-Man, Tony Stark, you can throw him in there because of all that stuff. It's like, those have to be grand scale sacrifice moments for him to really pay off and really show this is what the guy is all about.
Right.
And, when the idea of He-Man going, if everything dies if I don't do this, then I'm doing this, Absolutely. Yes, of course he's going to freaking do
it. And basically from there, we just cut back to the Royal Palace for our final scene. And, Man-at-Arms is informing the King and Queen that He-Man did not survive the battle. And Marlena just loses it. Randor's, he's being the king. He's going, we hope he basically rest in peace. We hope he's achieved his place in the Hall of Heroes and all that. And Marlena's line, Randor, we lost our son. Like, that's a parent's worst nightmare. And just Randor's reaction, Tila's still shell-shocked, and Duncan's just bracing himself because he knows this doesn't end well. And I know we've speculated before on what happens when the secret comes out, depending on where Adam is or what happened to him, and this is like the worst way that this secret can come out for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I mean, the show did something that a lot of people say when there is a person that they care about passes on. Yeah. It's the whole, remembering what you say to somebody the last time. Like, you don't know if this is the last time you're ever going to see that person again. And the fact that the last thing that was exchanged between Randor and Adam is Randor giving Adam a bit of grief about the fact, that's parental pride when they look at Duncan, when the whole ceremony for Teela is about to happen. That's parental pride. I hope to see that one day out of you, Adam, and know how that feels. And it's this whole, like, and they even addressed it in the prequel comic. All along, he's been playing this role because it's trying to keep the secret safe, and it's trying to keep his parents safe and all the people he loves safe. And the fact that this is the moment you get to find that out, he's not here to even address these things.
Right.
And again, there is people with the whole how Randor reacted, and I'm like, if that was me in that moment, I would have probably been worse. I would have probably like I don't know if I'd even be in the same house as Marlena ever again, because if my wife knew something about my son and she never came to me to let me know about it.
Right.
We said that just recently on the show. Like if your daughter came to me with a secret and I didn't tell you, all of that. It's the whole, like, how would you handle that? And as the king, you're finding out your son is better than you ever imagined him to be. And and you find out Duncan, and you find out Marlene. It's like, you'd almost be like, who's conspiring against me in this moment? Like, everybody I can't trust in this room. Like Orko, Cringer, nobody,
Right.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
I'd be wrecked.
Yeah. And he lashes out again. And this is in Randor's, backstory. He always says he was rowdy as a youth. He was, he was quick to anger. And he overcame all that. But in this moment, he's reverting back to basics. In that moment, he is that young prince again that just, you want to fight about it, and he banishes Duncan and all that. And then he has Tila to escort him out. And that's the breaking point for her. Like, she's just been just like, just shell shocked, just numb to everything so far. And she just loses it at that point, and she goes off on everybody. Which, again, going back, she just lost, her best friend on the battlefield. She lost her best friend in her real life. The guy that she has feelings for. And she found out that her own father has kept this secret from her. The queen apparently knew. Like, again, it's that feeling like all you guys knew. No one could tell me, and I'm sure there was even a bit of that in her mind of her mother, how Duncan refuses to tell her anything about who she is or where she came from beyond that she was adopted by him. Like, I think all that just swirled up, and she's done. And she denounces her position, throws down her tiara, and takes off.
Something that I wanted to bring up too, and I'm not going to try to make it a huge thing, but like, I've heard the thing of, oh, it's me when it comes to this moment, and when it comes to even later on in the episodes when she sees Adam again and all that. And I'm thinking, I was thinking about it just before we started recording, and I'm like, I've lost enough people in my life where there have been a few in particular where if I had the chance to see them again, my first response would be, it's about me. Right. And that doesn't make me selfish. That doesn't make me anything other than, when someone dies, they're gone, and you're left to figure out what to do with that.
Right.
And, like, I thought about it. I'm like, my God, like, everybody giving her grief. It's like, you know what? She's dealing with this. She's coming to terms with it. And I'm sorry, but people deal with grief in their own way. And there are people that it's like, if this person would have only told me, like a friend of mine, for instance, who was a really good friend of mine, he died, and I found out, like, there's stuff I might have been able to do to help him. He never reached out to me to tell me. And I'm like, if he could have told me these things, or if he would have at least let me in a little more instead of having the pride about it that he did, I would have been happy to offer up any kind of help I could, because I know what happened when he didn't do it. And that's kind of the thing when I look at this. It's like, that to me is not being selfish. That's her digesting everything in this one instance that happens. And it's not about her, in my opinion. It's about, it's the anger of the grief coming to the surface again.
Well, that's it.
And that's not who she is all the time,
And no one can tell you how to process your grief. No one. No. They've got the stages and all that, and people can help you, but some of the stages take longer than others. It varies from person to person, and it's all happening so fast. And I would say, and we'll get into it more down the road, but I would say that basically this whole first 5 episodes and possibly beyond is her coming to terms with all of it and working through her stages of grief. And right now, she just needs to be alone.
Yeah.
And so that's what she chooses. She's forget you. I'm out of here. So, and that's where we're left. Credits roll.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, you want to talk about turning it up to 10 for the people that grew up with it, but now we have the new storytelling methods and the new storytelling ways that we have become used to through movies and TV. And it's like, yeah, like it works because this isn't just a cartoon anymore. There is this feeling of it's genuinely, there's stakes, there's drama, and you care about this stuff while it's happening.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree. This is the part where I would love to speculate on what's coming up next, but unfortunately Netflix does not do weekly releases. So we already know what's coming up next. But yeah, overall, very enjoyable episode. It made me realize that I have, as much as I thought I knew, I didn't. Even though I figured out a couple small things, and there was no hesitation on my part of rolling into the next episode when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. I actually, after that ending, I'm so glad we had the next episode because I had a week to go to wait for that. I mean, again, one of my negatives will always be I really wish the shows were longer than just 25 minutes because I feel like there's more story they could tell within just this story. They could have had a few more moments or whatever. But I'm I'm not going to complain because I'm completely happy that we have new material for the first time in years.
And it's easy to binge too. I like that. Like I did.
Yes.
Think about it. If they'd done hour-long episodes, 5 episodes, that means you're looking at twice as long to have to get through it, and that's not a bad thing. But it's also very hard to get 5 hours of viewing in. Under my schedule at one time. So, and the way this is going, I would have wanted to just keep going as I did that night. Mm-hmm. So, I think we'll leave it there for now. So, join us soon. We'll be back. We'll be breaking down episode 2, the Poison Chalice. And, Shawn, anything you got to wrap us up?
Just, hey, like, subscribe, share. logpod85@gmail.com. logpod85 on Twitter.
Yep.
If you want to get in touch with us or the group on Facebook, Legends of Grayskull Podcast.
Yep.
And until next time.
Stay legendary.
Oh, come on. Oh, rough. Oh, bear. Oh.